welcome to our Caucus for Women in Statistics interview series of past presidents. 2021 is a celebration of the Caucus for Women in Statistics 50th anniversary, and we are interviewing past presidents. This interview features Paula Roberson, our 2015 president of the caucus, and is interviewed by me, Jessica Kohlschmidt, the executive director for the Caucus of Women in Statistics. Okay. When you were the Caucus for Women in Statistics president, what was the most pressing issue for the caucus?
Well, I was president in 2015, and it was a time really of transition for the caucus. So it was a time of trying to modernize many of the procedures and so on that we had, to update the website into a more modern website, to get a computerized membership database that was accessible and usable, because in my year as past president, when I was trying to do the nominations for officers, just finding out who was a member was really difficult. And so lots of these activities were ongoing, and we were really fortunate to have Jiyoung Sun, who was president the year after me, who had a lot of connections to very tech-savvy young women who were happy to participate and help with that process. And I think the caucus owes her a lot for instigating those modernizations for us and finding people who could really help with that. And so that has really helped the caucus come a long way, I think, and attract more younger members. So, which brings me to one of the other issues when I was president, which was that we had a declining membership, and we really needed to not only attract more members, but bring in a lot of younger members who could really move things forward and help us understand what we needed in order to attract the next generation of women statisticians. So Ji-Hun Lee was really helpful in bringing in a lot of new younger members. She was very enthusiastic. She had a good network. She really participated a lot in activities that helped to do that. And for example, she coordinated the information table at JSM and really brought in a lot of new members that way. And so the executive committee really worked to discuss ways that we could engage those members and retain them. And there were a lot of new committees and volunteer opportunities that were set up so that members who joined actually had a role and could do things during the year. It wasn't just an organization that you attended a reception once a year at JSM.
We have come a long way. I'm proud of you, all of us.
So there were, I think, some major accomplishments during that time. One of the things that I worked on a lot, continuing into my time as past president, was completing the revisions to the Constitution and bylaws. The updates to those had been begun by Nancy Flournoy, who was the president the year before me, but there still was a lot of work to be done, and especially as we were creating some of these new positions and so on, trying to get those incorporated in a meaningful way into the Constitution and bylaws. So I worked quite a bit in getting that in shape and making sure that different sections of that were consistent. And
it was hard trying to rewrite the whole thing and then somehow have all the pieces fit nicely. So you were instrumental in.
It was more time consuming than one might have thought on the surface of it.
Oh, for sure. It's exhausting in my opinion.
So another activity that had just started, I think the year before I was president, was the co-sponsorship of an orientation and reception on the Sunday of JSM for first-time attendees. And this was a good way to not only participate in, for the caucus to participate in JSM, but to have some visibility and to promote the caucus and make people more aware of it. So there were lots of things that went on that year that were discussions among the executive committee that did not really come to fruition until after my period of being president. But ideas were discussed and things were set in motion. The mentoring program that Ji Hun Lee proceeded during her presidency to establish was another one of those. So I think there was a lot of activity, but many of those things did not really come to full fruition until later.
It takes time.
Sorry?
It takes time.
Yeah,
Like, they don't just happen.
all right.
The idea just happens, but the, making of them is a whole nother story.
All right.
Are you ready for another question?
Sure.
Or do you have more?
No, that's fine.
When you were the president, what was your favorite memory of the Caucus for Women in Statistics?
So one of my favorite memories is working with Jessica Colesmith in the planning of the networking breakfast and the reception that is held in conjunction with the business meeting. So we poured over lots of catering menus and tried to figure out what kind of budget we had to work with and what we could do that would be exciting and memorable on the budget that we had. And it was fun. So, and it turned out well.
Luckily, your year was not the year that the pig came out with the head on it that people freaked out about. That was priceless. Nancy thought that a pig would be such a good idea. And then Ji Hun was like, it has a head on it. Oh, goodness. All right. When you were caucus president, who in the executive committee do you remember the most? And what member do you remember the most?
Well, quite a few members of the executive committee. And I've named several of them already, Ji Hun Lee and Jae-Young Sun and Anna, Nevius, who has been our faithful treasurer for a long, long time, and Nancy Flournoy, who had been president the year before me. So, but most of all, I remember Jessica. And had lots of good conversations and phone calls that combined some friendship and laughter and catching up along with a lot of business. So.
You're so sweet. Thank you. Did you hear about the new Clara Bloomfield Center of Excellence or some such?
No, I haven't.
I'll have to email you. You'll be excited.
Yeah, okay.
We're now a center in her honor.
Oh, good.
So, since you followed her.
I'll have to look. I'm surprised there hadn't been anything in the cancer letter, but I'll look. Maybe I missed it.
I don't know that it's made it outside of OSU yet.
Okay.
It took them, when did she pass away? March?
Yeah.
It just went out last week, so it's taken them quite some time. And this was in the works, like, quickly. So,
okay. All
right. Anyways, have a job for a while, so that's good.
That's good. Well, and I'm not surprised that there's being a center or something on that magnitude established in her name, but yeah, I'll be interested to see the details.
Yeah, I was Anna asked me about my job today, and I was like, I should share this with people. Those of you who sort of remotely followed Clara and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure it's a little bit reassuring to you to know what's happening going forward.
Yes, yes. And I have a lead statistician, and perhaps some fancy title in the center would be fun.
Good, yeah.
I'm aiming for it. I'm like, can I be assistant director or like something?
Right.
Something that sounds good. That's all. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Do you have in 2 words, describe how you feel about the caucus?
Awesome networking.
Aw. I read that one time and I'm like, if you don't prepare for that, how on earth do you even?
Right. Yeah, I'm glad.
I told Nicole, I was like, how about 2 sentences? So, all right. Well, you definitely gave me some things to put in our history document. So that's good. I don't know if I added stuff for your year or not. I don't know. Have you seen the document where every president?
Yeah. So it just had my name. That's fine.
Okay. So I'll add some of this to you. All right. Do you have time to talk about your career path for a few minutes?
I do.
You know, the caucus for me has been a learning opportunity and
for sure.
A million things that I never would have done a website or.
Yeah. You've done a great job, so I hope you're staying with it for a while.
I did commit to 3 more years as executive director, so that's good. You know, some more stability. It'll be interesting to see who we can bring in so that the stability continues, because I think it's really important. I think things have been easier transitions when someone's been around throughout them instead of the constant like just turnover and complete burnout when you're done, so that you're done.
Well, and so I didn't say one of the words I guess I was going to use when I was talking about you and your role and your important role in this is that you provide this sense of continuity for things, and that's really helpful to a new president stepping in.
Yeah, I definitely think it makes people not as anxious that they have to like figure out everything right away. Anyways, this has been a great opportunity for me because who would have ever thought that would happen? All right, so how did you end up becoming a statistician?
Well, I was a math major as an undergraduate. This is probably a familiar story because one of the questions I frequently ask faculty candidates that we're interviewing is how they became a statistician, and I hear similar stories. I was a math major. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it after I graduated from college. I knew that I wasn't particularly interested in teaching high school math. And so the university, I went to Southern Methodist University in Dallas, and it was one of the early universities to have a statistics department that was separate from the math department. And there were it was primarily a graduate department. They started a bachelor's degree during the time I was there. But there were, even before the bachelor's degree was initiated, there were some courses that were cross-listed between the graduate school and undergraduate, and so as math electives. And so I took a statistics class as a math elective and got very excited about it because this was something I could actually do with mathematics. It wasn't just an academic exercise. And so I went to talk with the instructor of the class, who was Bill Shikani, an ASA fellow, who said, well, we're starting this bachelor's degree program, and since you're already a math major, it would be very easy to double major. And so I double majored in math and statistics and continued to sort of think about what I wanted to do after graduation. I was also very interested in biology and had been working summers in labs at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, which is where I grew up. And at one point considered going to graduate school in microbiology. But over the course of finishing my undergraduate degree, came to realize that what really excited me the most was applying these statistical principles to biological research. And so again, I went to talk with Bill Shikani, who said, there's this developing field of biostatistics, and your interests would just mesh perfectly with that. And our faculty know some of the prominent faculty in the departments of biostatistics, and we'd be happy to put you in touch with people. And so I ended up going to graduate school at the University of Washington in Seattle, which is a very strong biostat program. Worked the first year, I had a teaching assistantship, and then after that had research assistantships working with the CAS study, the cardiovascular surgery, bypass surgery study, that was at the time the largest randomized clinical trial and was the first to use distributed data entry and so on. The coordinating center of it was at the University of Washington in the Department of Biostat with my major professor, Lloyd Fisher, and the chair of the Biostat department, Richard Cronmall, as the co-PIs of that data coordinating center. So I got a lot of practical experience through that, combined with an excellent education. And although some of the students who worked for the coordinating center in years after I was there were able to come out of that with some co-authored publications and so on, I worked at it at such an early stage that there weren't publications coming out. However, I benefited considerably from working with it at that stage, because I got to see firsthand a lot of issues that go into the development and design and initiation of a large study like that have been invaluable in my career.
That's awesome. I like your story.
Oh, thank you.
I didn't even know where you went to undergrad or, lived or any of those things.
Yeah.
I thought about going to SMU for my PhD, actually.
Did you? Yeah, it's a good program.
I did. Okay, what challenges do you think female statisticians face today?
I think a huge challenge continues to be work-life balance. And although technology is wonderful and it has certainly transformed not just our lives, but also our careers as statisticians, and has made many things easier, it's also made some things harder. And particularly in this era of COVID and needing to socially distance and work remotely and so on, the ability to separate work and family life is difficult. And I think it's difficult for everybody, but I think there's a higher burden of that placed on women, particularly women who are parents and especially single parents.
What a fact of life. Oh, goodness. Anything you would like to share regarding your career development? I've decided these questions are in backward order.
I think look for opportunities and be willing to consider new challenges. When I came to UAMS, I never would have necessarily expected that I would be here for over 20 years. I never expected that I would be chairing a department. You just have to sometimes be open to the opportunities that come along.